Hey, it's Scott. I want to go ahead and just quickly touch one more time on tiny trachs. And why this is a big deal is not only for patient care, but because in the last couple of years, I've also played expert witness in court on several malpractice cases, both involving kids and big people, that involve somebody whose trach fell out. And that's not the problem, because that happens. The problem was when they tried to put the trach back in. So with that in mind, if you think about it, if you get 911 paged to the VA because somebody's trach fell out, and they've had a trach for 42 years, you know what? They're gonna probably do just fine. The difference is if you're doing a trauma transfer, whereas somebody got emergently cracked, meaning they now have a fresh hole in their neck. Remember, these holes live to close. So with that in mind, remember that the only way to keep this hole open is to keep something inside of it. So if you're in the hospital setting and you're working with respiratory therapy, and they're doing a scheduled trach change, that's whereas you'll see them go ahead and use obturators. And remember, obturators just simply fit into the trach. And all it does is, instead of having now a flat piece that just doesn't look like it's going to feel comfortable if you shove this into your neck, when you place in the obturator, now it looks like a torpedo. And it just gives you a little bit of an easier, more gentle slope to go ahead and to try to replace the trach. And if you're doing an elective trach change in a hospital setting or in home care, great, feel free, use it. The problem is back at the rig or the ER, a lot of times we don't have all the bells, whistles, and toys. So with that, if you've got a little baby or if you've got an adult and their trach falls out, and you decide that they probably ought to have it put back in, do not just go ahead and blindly shove it back into their neck. And the rationale is, especially with a fresh cut in your neck. Remember, everything is swollen and bloody. And when you blindly shove it back in, it's way too easy for it to go into a false passage, which is a fancy way of saying it goes to the left or it goes to the right. And this is where the malpractice cases that I've worked with have come into play. And that they put the trach back in, but they didn't confirm that it was in the right spot when it was back in. So with that in mind, if you have to emergently replace a trach, here's what you want to do. Is take, as an example, the adult side. Take a big old adult trach. In your other hand, take a suction catheter. And before you come anywhere near the patient, just put the two pieces together. Then, instead of blindly shoving the trach into the hole, put the suction catheter into the hole instead. And what you'll find is that, number one, if it slides down very easily, you're probably in the right spot. Number two, if your patient's alive, when you start bouncing off the carina, they go, you know what, you're probably in the right spot. And then you can go ahead and use the suction catheter like a guide wire to thread it into the neck. And on your way out, just suck out the boogers. Same way applies when it comes to little kids. If you have a little kid who now is missing their trach, simply don't just shove it back in their neck. Take a little tiny suction catheter, put the two and two together. Find where you think the hole is and gently slide the suction catheter down. Once you're sure that it's probably in the right spot, then you can go ahead and thread the trach over the top. Lastly, once you're in the right spot, if you've got CO2 color change, absolutely use it. Even better if you've got capnography, where you hook up the bells, whistles, toys, and get the numbers. Remember, no trace, wrong place. You want to make sure, whether it's a tube or a trach, that if you put it back in, that it's in the right spot.